Hey everybody, Jedi Jack Luther here, and I know it's been a while since I've done videos of what's in the box. It's just been busy and everything these past few months. It's just been kind of, things have been going on. We had Vacation Bible School, which was really awesome, and got a whole bunch of stuff going on, but I've gotten some stuff in the mail. I just haven't had time to do what's in the box. So I want to show you. So I'm going to do a bunch of videos kind of like to update everything so we can get back on track. So you have something to watch here. So the first thing I want to talk about is a toy. I actually didn't get it in the mail. I went to here in the Triangle area up in Raleigh. There's a store called Cro-Mag, and they have some, they do all the old toys, everything from the 80s and the 90s and some modern stuff, but they got a lot of old stuff. And they had a toy. I actually had to after selling a few things on eBay, I saved up my money, and with a little generosity from my wife, I was able to go and make a purchase of something I never had but always wanted to have as a kid when it came out. And I'm going to show it to you right now. And it's huge. It's a monstrosity. Look how big this thing is. My head is huge and this thing's bigger than my head. This is Tendril, and he's a monster from the Inhumanoids cartoon. Now, back in the 80s, just about anybody that wanted to make a toy made a cartoon for the toy, or vice versa. And the Inhumanoids were no exception. But it was Inhumanoids is one of those cartoons that has a very specific fan base niche. There's not a lot of fans, and the people who do like it are diehard fans. They collect the whole thing because these only were out for a little bit. Tendril, as you can see, is this giant green plant monster. He's got rubbery arms. He's got a more soft tail back here to help him balance. He's so huge. And he's got the feature that a lot of the Star Wars droids and figures have it, where they have a piece of translucent plastic in the top. You shine a light down there and his fangs will light up because of the translucent plastic. And I've always wanted this figure because as we will see in another video, I'm a big fan of plant type stuff, all the Swamp Thing and Dagobah and all that. So I've always wanted him. He's a massive piece of plastic. Inhumanoids only ran for probably about a year. And like I said, it wasn't a very popular cartoon. If you go to YouTube, if you're on YouTube, Google Inhumanoids Nightmare, and the very first episode, there were three big monsters. There was Metlar, which was this demon-looking monster that could spit fireballs out of his mouth. There was Tendril, the plant creature, and then there was a creature looked like a giant skeleton of a dinosaur called Decompose. And whatever he touched would rot and decompose away. But if he touched a person, they would turn into these giant skeletal nightmares. In the first episode, the girl that's in the group with these guys that are fighting these monsters gets touched. She turns into this big nightmare creature. Boy, that would have scared the living daylights out of you as a kid. You'd be like, what the hey? So it was a very... It wasn't G.I. Joe, and the figures that came out were very different figures. They were very big. Even the humans, the good guys, were really tall figures. I mean, they were like that tall, and they came with one arm. They came in their battle suits and a helmet that would put on, because back in the 80s, if toy had a helmet or a mask, that was it. We had to have it, and each person could do a different thing. There was one guy had a grappling hook, another guy had two big claws for hands that he could scoop with, and another guy that looked like had a generator on it that he could shoot acid from. The toy didn't shoot acid, but in the cartoon it did. And then there was a set of good guy creatures, like there were these little tree looking dudes that would extend up, and then there were rock dudes that would open up, and they had to add a transformation element. But the show was only popular with a few people, and us that grew up that liked it went out and bought all this stuff, and now we have collections. So it's easy to find them on eBay. They're not hard to find. but getting complete examples of them can be a little spendy. Some of the Earth Core, which are the guys in the suits, you know, $20, $30, $40, $50, depending on the condition, depending on if they're complete. Some of the smaller monsters, $20, $30, depending on their condition. But it's these giant inhumanoid creatures that really top the scale. I'm just going to go out and put it out there. Tendril was $120. It's a lot of money for a lot of plastic. But he's in excellent shape. He's in really good shape. I've seen examples on eBay of Tendril for $120, $150, and he's in nowhere good a shape as this figure is. This figure could have gone a lot higher due that it's in really good condition. It probably didn't because there's not an Inhumanoids fan base around here in the Raleigh area. And maybe there is, but if there is, those people already have this figure, and they probably have it in even better condition than I have. They may have it even in mint condition or even in the box, depending on how they collect it. But this is a figure I've often always wanted. I thought it would be cool to have this giant green plant creature battling Swamp Thing or what have you. As you can't tell, I'm coming to you recorded from my bedroom where I have, let me swing it around here, where I have some stuff set up. Tendril, whose tail is now holding the phone, he's good for that, was always one of my favorites. I always wanted him, but it was hard to afford to pay that price tag and to find him even. So Chromat got him in, and he never sold. So I picked him up pretty quickly, as fast as I could. Very happy with it. It's a great toy. It's a really great piece. It's nice to have a nice big toy. You have all these small action figures, but every now and then it's nice to have a nice big toy. And he is of no exception. Just the massive size of him. His arms look like they have a bendability thing, but I'm not going to press him too hard because you see he's got this joint and it's a little loose there. Because this is a different type of plastic than this. So whenever you have, I feel whenever you have that, whenever you have two different materials or two different pieces of plastic at a joint, that joint's not very stable. I've seen examples of things that have metal attached to plastic, and the joints aren't that, it's not very stable because it's two different things. The closer to the right material the joint is, the better the joint will hold. His leg joints are fine because it's the same plastic for the legs as it is for the body. And the head is just a nice solid, is really hard plastic. It has, you know, there's no rubbery to it. So these rubbery joints can get a little loose. On a lot of examples, his arms are gone. His tails are, the two tail pieces are gone. His fangs are chipped. It's very hard to find a very good example of Tendril. And if you're into the market, if for some reason you watched Inhumanoids on YouTube and thought, man, I like these toys, I want to start collecting them, I'm going to warn you now, you're going to have to pay the money for them to get them in good condition. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't have a good example of figures. Trying to get this phone to stay. You can't have good example of toys unless you put the money in. The more money you put into them, just the better quality you're going to get. If you're only wanting to spend a few bucks on like vintage Star Wars figures, you're just going to get a figure. It could be completely filthy, could be dirty, could be missing parts. You almost have to put the money into it. And I always recommend that. I know it can be, you know, people are on budgets and I can't afford that much. It's like, I understand, you know, you're on a budget and you can't do it. You basically are slowly picking up piece by piece. So it's a long process sometimes. But I highly recommend that if you have seen Inhumanoids, the cartoon, and you thought, man, that's really cool, and you saw the toy commercial, and you think, man, these toys are awesome. I've got to go get them. You're just going to have to realize that you're going to be shelling out some money for them. They weren't out in popularity like other toys, like G.I. Joe, Transformers, Star Wars, all that stuff. It just wasn't out there. It just wasn't that popular. It didn't sell well. It was hard, you know. The giant figures were $40 back in the 80s. So you go onto Google like a time calculator of what $40 was back then compared to what it's now, and you'll see how much money it really was to buy these things, especially when you had Transformers and G.I. Joe battling each other at the toy aisles. These guys were just left behind, and no one was going to put $40 into a giant toy if they're collecting G.I. Joe. $40 could have bought you like 2-3 vehicles or a handful of figures. And Transformers, $40 could have gotten you at least 2 good Transformers, if not a few more. So they didn't stay well. They weren't very popular. The cartoon didn't do well because it was only on for a year. People just couldn't get into it. I saw a handful of episodes and never watched it. The only thing I liked about it was Tendril. And I wanted the figure, but I couldn't convince my mom, who was buying at the time, I think I was into He-Man at that time, was buying me He-Man stuff. So it was hard to convince her to pay $40 for a giant piece of plastic when I was collecting He-Man at the time. And she was putting money into that. $40, He-Man figures were like $5 a piece back then. That's 8 He-Man figures. That's like a small army almost. So that's what I got today. This is my first video. I'm going to do a bunch more, put them out there. For my first video, though, we got Tendril from Inhumanoids, which is, it's the only figure I'm probably going to own from the set. I'm not collecting a set of them. I'm not going out and getting any more. I would like one of the redwood creatures that's out there. If I ever get it, I get it. But if I don't get it, I'm not worried about it. I got the one I really wanted to show off in my Swamp collection because I like Swamp Thing, and he would be a perfect match for that whole thing. All right, everyone, Jedi Jack Luther here. And so far, I've showed you Tendril and some of the things that came in. I'm going to do a couple more videos to update you on what's come in so we can get going here and we can get caught up. So I'll be back with you in just a little bit. Stay tuned for another video, and hang in there. We're coming right back.